Hello and welcome again to Red Gaming Tech for yet more of your daily gaming news with myself, Amata. Today is of course the 28th of September, and this time I'm bringing you something a little bit different, as Sony's Fergal Gara was interviewed today by CVG while he was at Eurogamer Expo, and he was asked various important questions regarding the PlayStation 4 sales, its future, the PS Vita, the PS Vita TV, and various other things. So it's a fairly long interview. I'm not going to go through all of it, but if you want to check out the full thing, I will of course provide a link in the description if you want to have a read. It's rather interesting. So first things first, in August, Sony did announce that the PS4 had achieved 1 million pre-orders, and he was asked, can you provide an update on how this progressed? And he had said, quote, "What I will say is that it has continued to march ahead strongly, and there's no signs of it slowing down either. That's hugely encouraging. We know there is a huge desire out there for new consoles, and that's why people want a PlayStation 4. At Gamescom, the global million was over 1 million units. That's over, and the number has grown substantially since then. And of course, as you might expect, naturally following up from that was the possible UK stock shortage here for the PlayStation 4, and he said, quote, well, it depends on time frame. Within the first 2 to 3 months from launch, we will undoubtedly have ample volume to service any forecasts we have on sales. However, there may well be tight supplies at Christmas. I can see a pinch point around that time. The metric that we use is the pre-order demand curve, and we've used our past 5 console launches as a reference point. Everyone who has put down a pre-order so far will definitely get one before Christmas, as long as nothing goes wrong. And a few people have been wondering about this, including myself, and it was of course addressed that in August Sony put a deadline on day one, pre-order guarantees, but he was asked, do you think those beyond that deadline will still get it before Christmas? Now of course this isn't will they get it on day one. It was pretty plainly stated that if you do not pre-order it before August, you're most likely not going to get it on day one. And he said, quote, yes, and if things keep going well, we'll delight even more people on day one. We don't want to overpromise and underdeliver. We want to do the opposite. And regarding the first several months after Christmas, he said, well, based on what we know now, we'll be in free supply at the start of the year. So it seems like it's going to be fairly promising for those of us here in the UK. I was a little bit concerned about stock shortages here in England, as of course there have been various reports about the huge number of pre-orders, as well as of course this August deadline thing. Now luckily for us here at RGT, we did already pre-order our PS4 quite some time ago, I believe just after the console was actually officially revealed and announced to have a price tag, all that good stuff. But basically as soon as it was available to officially pre-order, we did do so. So obviously we're good and safe, but those of you who perhaps couldn't pre-order straight away for whatever reason, you were a bit unsure, you wanted to see more information on the Xbox One, or perhaps you didn't know whether or not you wanted to jump straight on the next gen bandwagon, which is fair enough. It's obviously an expensive piece of hardware. You want to make a careful and calculated decision on which console, if you decide to buy one, should you go with. So it seems like even if you didn't make the August deadline for pre-orders, you will be getting your PS4 before Christmas, which is very, very good indeed, especially for those of you hoping to get it for Christmas as a gift, or perhaps those of you buying it as a gift for somebody else. So I think you can breathe a sigh of release. Now, if you haven't pre-ordered, I would highly recommend doing it, because around Christmas time in the stores, it's obviously going to be very, very much in demand, even more so than, of course, when it first comes out, or possibly even just to match that. That's going to be pretty mad just by itself. So I personally would consider pre-ordering it if perhaps you're going to get it as a gift, or advising the person buying it as a gift for you that they need to do that if they can, because, well, they may not be able to get their hands on it if they don't do so. That's the message I'm getting here, but perhaps I'm reading too much into things. Now, moving on from the pre-orders and all of that, they were of course asked about the Xbox One, as it does launch 7 days before the PS4 here in the UK. Now, I have speculated that while 7 days is not exactly a huge deal, it may have an impact, and he was of course asked about the impact that this may have on the PS4 sales. And he said, quote, well, would you rather have 7 days or 16 months? I think it's a moot point really. We're effectively launching at the same time. I don't think 7 days are going to have an advantage or disadvantage. And to be honest, he's probably right. I think most people who are going to be pre-ordering their console or getting it on day one or what have you have already made their decision, whatever that decision may be. Even if it's the decision to not buy a console yet because they want to wait, because they want to save up or whatever. Most people have made their decision, unless, of course, they're more of a casual gamer or what have you. 7 days may be enough to sway the more casual gamers to part with their cash for their earliest console to get their hands on their next gen games as soon as possible, but we are talking about a week here, so I think that most people would have made a decision in their minds. Even the more casual gamers may have made a decision, whatever that is. And I don't think 7 days is going to make a huge difference. It may have a small effect, and of course we won't really know any effect that it may have until, of course, the first sales figures actually come out. Now, of course, the PS4 is significantly cheaper if you get the base console than the Xbox One, about £100 cheaper, or roughly $100 as well. So, of course, he was addressed how much of an advantage with the PS4's lowest price point will give it over the Xbox One, and he said, quote, "Price isn't everything, it's an advantage but it can move over time. Value to the consumer is everything, which is price and quality of content for that price. We feel in very good shape on that front. We're really pleased." And yes, of course, price is probably one of the biggest advantages that the PS4 may have over the Xbox One. Of course, in terms of specifications, they're roughly the same, with some more power going to the PS4. And of course, games-wise, it really comes down to your personal preference. You know, they're fairly closely matched console-wise, but I think the price may be the sticking point for a lot of people because, well, if you're a student or, you know, you only have a part-time job or you don't have a lot of disposable income because you've got a family to look after, you know, there's many different reasons as to why that £100 or $100 that you could save will matter a lot to you, especially when you're buying something as expensive as a console. And that may even need extra things to go with it, such as a new HD TV, for example. Of course, it's HDMI only, so if you don't have a HD TV, which most people do, granted, but still, there's that extra cost to think about as well. Of course, that's the same for the Xbox One, so regardless. Still, I think price is not everything, as he said. Those who want the Xbox One are going to go for it regardless of how much they have to pay, most likely. Of course, if they have to pay $1,000, then that might be a different thing, but that's not happening. It's just, of course, an outlandish example. I think it will have an effect on some people, but those of you who are loyal to the Xbox One and to Microsoft will, of course, not be too bothered because, well, that's the console that they want. It has the games they want, the exclusives that they want, so it's not everything, but it is an important factor to consider for the next-gen future. Now, as I mentioned earlier on in this particular video, he was asked, of course, about the PS Vita TV, and there's no plans at the moment to release it in the UK, and he said, quote, "Well, no plan that we're prepared to announce today. Not everything is suitable for every market, but what I will say is, watch this space. Let's get it out in Japan, see how successful it is, and take it from there." And Japan is a great place to launch that kind of device. PS Vita is strongest in Japan, and that brand has the most traction in Japan. Also, streaming media services are far more established in Japan than other territories, so it made a lot of sense to launch it there. But we are delighted by the interest that's been shown by Western media and the public, particularly in the UK. And the final thing that I want to mention in this video is the question regarding the PS Vita price drop. Now, this was announced back at Gamescom that the PS Vita would be receiving a drop in price, and he was asked how has that affected sales, and he said, quote, "Well, we're very pleased with how PS Vita sales are picked up this year. I must say, in the UK we're promoting it hard before the price drop, so actually the difference before and after Gamescom isn't that noticeable in the UK. The difference between the start of the year and now, however, is much more noticeable. We also believe that the rise in unit sales since Gamescom, considering there was no major Vita games in stores, is a result of our remote play announcement." That's what we think. I think remote play is a new weapon in our armory. It gives the PS4 a unique advantage over anything else, and it's an attractive new feature for the PS Vita. But I will add that PS Vita is forecast to hit its sales target in the UK, and games like Killzone Mercenary were well received, so we really need to press on with sales now. So yes, the PS Vita's future is looking a little bit better. It's not exactly selling amazingly by any stretch of the imagination. It's going to have a difficult time against the 3DS, of course, Pokemon X and Y, and various other huge titles coming out for Nintendo. So they're going to have a tough road ahead of them, but the remote play feature to stream from the PS4 is definitely going to be a huge factor for the PS Vita in the future. I think that for a lot of people it's going to be a really nice companion feature, whether or not they already have a Vita or not. It may sway them in buying one, especially if there's some games coming out for it that they want to play, and there are a few good games for the PS Vita, including of course the upcoming Batman Arkham Origins Black Gate, which is the handheld version of Origins, not exactly a direct port, but more of just a handheld Batman game. So you've got some good titles coming out for the Vita, as well as the remote play. It's definitely an interesting time, and we may see sales pick up. I'll be curious to see the actual effect the PS4 has on the Vita against the 3DS, especially with such monstrous titles as X and Y coming out. Anyway, that is me done for my roundup and slash analysis slash opinions video on this particular interview. As I said, I have missed some minor things, but I've covered what I view as the most important things of this particular interview. But if you want to read the whole thing, there will be a link in the description as I discussed previously, so do give that a read, and of course hit me up with your thoughts and opinions and what you think will be held in store for the future of the PS4, PS Vita and the Xbox One, and just the next generation in general. Anyway, that is me done for this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.